session, we were going to talk a little bit about the ARRL VHF contest, and that's this coming weekend, which is not this weekend, but the following weekend, the 16th and 17th, and it's a 24-hour event, and it's a great way just to get into contesting with even just a handheld. So Dan knows a little bit about this, and I'm going to have him or you, Marino, if you know a little bit more about like best practices and how to get started on that. So that'll be kind of our topic for tonight's getting started with ham radio. And then we can kind of follow that up with any other questions that people have or any other areas that people would like to know more about ham radio that we could probably make it to a future topic, if that makes sense.
Okay, very good. So let me see if I can locate the ARRL VHF contest page so we can go straight up there while Dan, if you want to take on and share what you know.
Right. The first thing is I just want to welcome everybody. And do we have any participants who are new who did not make it last week? And if you feel comfortable, go ahead and introduce yourself and, with your name, and if you have a call sign in any particular area. So I'll open it up to anybody who wasn't here last week who would like.
Hello, I'm Anna Anstinis.
Hello there.
Good evening.
Hello, my husband Sean's here. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Alpaca 7 Sierra India here, trying to rope the YL into the hobby.
Oh, great. Okay.
It's a conspiracy. We all tried.
Well, I told him I'd try out this one time and see how it goes. No.
Sure.
Well, nice to meet y'all. Okay.
Yeah. Well, by all means, welcome. And, if you have any questions, you can ask us. You don't have to ask your Elmer, as we say it there.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Sure will.
I know how that goes.
All
right. Anyone else here who would feel comfortable would like to say hello?
Hi, yeah, my name is Don Sanchez. I wasn't here last week, new to ham radio, don't have my license yet, working on the test, studying for the test.
Oh,
great. Excuse my voice, it kind of goes in and out. What's your area of interest that attracted you?
Just kind of wanted another avenue of communication in case things, stuff hits the fan. Was eventually want to get my wife into it as well, get her a radio so that she can pack it around with her when she goes to work, and we can just communicate if stuff goes awry.
Sure. Yeah. Emergency communication. And that's obviously a big part of, ham radio. And of course, then, from there, we have a lot of other aspects. If you're ever looking for, just more of a hobby type thing, there's many aspects to it. But welcome, and feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you.
You bet. And anyone else?
Yeah, my name's Al Scott. It shows William Scott as that's my legal name, but I go by my middle name, Al. And I'm Kilo India 7 Victor Golf Tango. I've had my license maybe 2 years from cert. For quite a while, I didn't do anything. I'm trying to learn more of the proper etiquette and things. I've had a Baofeng, which has not worked very well. I'm in the process of getting a Yaesu, which seems to be testing out much better. Trying to get up, communicating with our CERT team. And I did join the CERT team, but originally I wanted to get it because we'd owned a daycare center licensed for 85 children. And I was concerned if a big earthquake or something happened, you had no telephone. What could I do with my wife and I and their employees with 85 kids, So I wanted some sort of emergency preparedness there. So that's why I
Sure.
originally got it. We've since last year, a little over a year ago, sold and retired from the daycare business after 30 years. And so now it's just hobby and just being prepared and to help our area with their CERT team.
Great. Excellent. Which CERT team are you part of?
Oak Grove.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oak Lodge.
There's
I'm
a
trying to
lot
remember
of
what they call
us.
it. Greg Winnison is our leader.
Right. And I think he was here last week. I haven't seen if he's here this week. A lot of us, are in the Portland NET neighborhood emergency team, which is the same thing. We just call it NET because our Portland police emergency squad is SCRT. And so to avoid confusion, we call ourselves NET. And but in fact, a lot of us are in Selwood, so we're pretty close to Oak Grove, so, okay. Anyone else would like to chime in? Yeah, Peggy.
I'm just saying hi. Sorry I was a few minutes late.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's fine. We're just getting started with some introductions. And do you have a license or just interested or?
Just started studying. I'm supposed to take my
Great.
test on the 16th. I have to admit, getting started, I'm about chapter 3 in the book, and it's a little overwhelming, but I got to keep pushing through. When I hear they say, oh, 13-year-olds have taken this test and passed, I'm starting to get a little stressed.
And you don't have to be 100%. So just remember that.
That's good. And math has always
Yeah.
been, my least favorite thing. So having to do all the conversions and then.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but
Oh, yeah.
I'll do my best.
Yep. Good. Oh, that's great. I'm sure you won't have any problem. And as I mentioned, everyone else, feel free to, ask any questions. Okay. Anyone else like to say hello?
Yeah, my name is Bill Bernstein, and I'm the third person, I guess, at least in the meeting who doesn't have a radio or a license, who is just starting to study. And my interest is basically in case the big one cuts loose offshore. I live in a large condo building, and we have an emergency committee, and I thought it would be useful for someone to know how to operate a ham radio.
Yeah, indeed. As many of us do, we're all part of some of the various emergency groups. There's the what they call the CERT Community Emergency Resilience Team, or the NET Neighborhood Emergency Team for Portland. So it's the same kind of thing, and a lot of the folks are involved in that. And then there's other levels of organization as well. So feel free to ask any questions, or, like, gee, what do I do for a radio, or what, any kind of thing like that you're fine.
I want to say hi
Okay.
to Bill because I think I exchanged emails with Bill. Right, Bill?
Yeah.
Great.
Hi.
Great. Yeah. No, watch out for Marino. Yeah, he's great. he'll give you a ton of good information. He's our information man.
He already has. He already has. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Anyone else who wants to say hello?
Hi there.
Anybody else?
I wanted to say hi.
Oh,
Hi,
sure.
Melanie.
Hi. It's actually 3 of us in this house are all a part of the meeting. They're all listening in. I'm always the face. And we're all 3 also taking the test on the 16th. So we'll see you there, Peggy.
Nice.
Great. Excellent.
Yeah, like the Brady Bunch. Everybody has their little box. and
You
they're
have
saying-
no idea.
Okay.
Okay. That's great. I'm just going to take a second. I'm going to throw it over to Nick. And Nick, K7PTT, you want to just give a brief overview of what NET and ARES do in terms of ham radio? And I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, way to put me on the spot, Dan. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
My name's Nick, and That is what got me in radio about 2 or 3 years ago. I'm new relative to other folks here. Rather than do that just yet, I did want to suggest for you guys studying the exam, you know, you can download a set of flashcards for an app that is really handy. It's just about memorizing the answers to these questions. It's like the real estate exam, and there's other certification exams that they give you the answers ahead of time, and they're just going to pull from a pool of, you know, 300 questions. And if you're good at memorization, a really handy thing that somebody mentioned to me was just memorize the answers. And then when you need to know the details, you can study up on it. But if you're good at memorizing, you'll be able to get that exam behind you and not stress so much about it. And so if you have any questions about that, I'd be glad to answer more. I'm not an expert on it, any sense of the word, but I'd be glad to share which app worked well for my Android phone. I'll probably put that in the chat while Dan's picking up. Also, you know, regarding the net, you know, essentially, I was also concerned, like the rest of a lot of folks here, about the Cascadia subduction. And so I don't remember who told me about that, but right away I got interested in the ham radio aspect of it. So there's a big community out there of folks who are just starting with this.
All right, just gonna say that I put in the chat room one website that I'm aware of, hamstudy.org. It's a free website, and also there are smartphone apps available for iPhone and Android. They cost $4, and a lot of people are happy. But there are also additional resources, so more we can keep looking. If you don't like that one, there are different ones.
Thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. And, you know, and again, just on the emergency aspects of it, you know, there's a number of ways to go with your net team or your CERT team. You know, it's a really good place to start. So you can get comfortable using the radio. And in fact, one of the topics that comes up often is, gee, what kind of radio should I buy? And, you know, there's no absolute clear answer for that. But generally speaking, most people start out with one of the very inexpensive radios. One of the common brands is called a Baofeng. And it will get you on the air. The problem is that sometimes the performance of those very inexpensive radios can leave quite a bit to be desired. But, you know, it might be a good place to start, because even if you end up buying a more expensive radio, you know, the inexpensive radio will be something that you can, you know, throw in a bag, throw in a car, you know, if you're biking or walking. And if you drop it and something happens to it, you're not going to be out, you know, $150 to $250, or you can loan it to somebody. So, you know, that's just one option. Bill, if you're here, do you want to talk a little bit more about that, about what your thoughts are, if I can impose on you?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
I know I put you on the spot.
You know, I encourage people who are getting started to spend the least amount of money that they need to experiment with the hobby, but be realistic about the performance. Price and performance go together. If you spend $100 on an HT, you're going to get a better HT than if you spend $40 or $30. If you're buying for emergency communications, it's important to think about things like, how will I charge batteries? Can I switch antennas easily? Does it have the basic features I need to be useful in the situation that in which I'm most likely to use it. And then the last thing I'll say about this is getting licensed and buying a radio will not solve your problem. You actually have to get on the air and use the equipment. And that, because if you do not practice and you do not know how to program your radio, when you need to do that, you do not want to be trying to find the manual. Whether it's an earthquake or fire, or you're just trying to get in touch with your kids. So the three things go together. Price and performance go together. Matching what you buy. Very few people who are starting out with emergency communications need to spend $400 or $500 on a mobile radio. But buy yourself a couple of good handsets. Realize that you're going to have to buy antennas. You're going to have to figure out how to charge batteries. And then once you get it, learn how to use it. Like actually get on the air. Don't put it in a Go Pack and then expect that you'll figure it out, because it's not an iPhone. And that's probably the most important thing for new people getting licensed. We're very used to reliable communications technology in this country. And we take our iPhone out in the middle of nowhere and we send people pictures, and we do FaceTime, and we get on our Facebook accounts. And RF communications is not actually like that. That works because there's billions and billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure sitting behind your iPhone that you won't have when you're using a radio. So, which is what makes it a fun hobby.
Bill,
if I
Yes.
may, case in point.
it's Diane Marr, and I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for that, because I think that's so true. And my handheld device was programmed by my net head, or whatever you want to call it, who does the radio in our group. Is that going to be enough programming to, in case of an emergency, or are you saying that I'm going to have other programming done in order to be able to get in touch with people in my family and other emergency things that I need?
Well, there's two parts to that, two ways to answer that question. First is, and I have to say first, since I don't know what the programming, what frequencies are programmed into your radio, it's hard to answer the question in a broad way. But the other two parts of the answer is, if you're going to use the radios to communicate with your family, then you need to have a plan about how that'll work. What frequencies are we going to use? How are we going to know to switch frequencies if one doesn't work? You need to think about how you actually use it in an emergency situation. The second thing to realize is that if the net programming is what is typically done, it's been programmed with a whole bunch of repeater channels, right? Which is really great for everyday use. And then you ask yourself the question, if we have a big earthquake, how many of those repeaters are going to have power? So what I want to encourage you to do is whether it's with your net team or with your family, sit down in the same way that you have an action plan for where the family will meet if you can't all get to home, or how you'll communicate with each other, or how you alert people outside the area that you're okay. Do that kind of planning with your radio. Where will the radios be? What frequencies are we going to try and meet on, right? Are we going to try to do that once an hour? Or are we going to try to do it once a day?
Trying to listen to this.
Okay, great. So now that brings up the other question. What can I have to refer to? What kind of literature or something can I refer to, see what is available to me,
Right.
use, so that I'm not intruding on some important other conversation?
Well,
That's a very good point.
Yeah, so part of that information should be coming from your net team. The guy or the person who programmed your radio should know what those frequencies are and how those repeaters will be used. And if you're going to use those frequencies, then you need to understand how they're likely to be used in an emergency. And then the second half of that answer is, it's a fundamental rule of amateur radio operation that you listen before you talk. Right? So in an emergency, you say, oh, my family's going to use this frequency, and you get on that frequency and you hear other people using it, you move to something else, right? So part of the reason I want to encourage, I always encourage people to like learn how to program your radio, learn how to use what the features are, make a plan for using it, is that, and again, I say this a lot, it's not an iPhone. When you turn it on, you're going to have to improvise, right? The frequency you want to use is not available, or there's a lot of noise on it, or you can't reach the person you want to reach on that frequency because they're too far away.
You need to stay flexible.
You have to stay flexible. It's a tool. It's not, and you have to learn to use it like a tool, like you do anything else. If you cook, or you make furniture, or you crochet, whatever your hobbies are, that same sort of pride that people take in learning how to do stuff in those other things applies to radio.
Okay.
Right? And especially for emergency purposes.
Nick, what do you have?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, just for those of you who are new, the distinction between a repeater and not using a repeater is called simplex, and it's not too technical, but I mean, I'm not going to get into the technical side of it, but your radio will go a lot further with a repeater, as you probably figured out. But if you're on simplex and you're not using a repeater, it will be a scratchy signal that you'll hear, and sometimes you may need to move around a little bit in order to get your signal out. So I just thought I'd share that for folks that might not know the distinction.
Right. We should also point out that in case of emergency, some of the repeaters that are around here in town will be commandeered, taken over by the emergency agencies, such as the Multnomah County Emergency Management Office and or the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. And so these organizations have agreements, standing agreements with the owner of these repeaters, where is, in case of a real emergency, these groups will sit on the repeater and take control and use it for their own coordination, and send away other people that might try to use the same resources, because it's a controlled resource. But Diane, as you were saying, you are part of a NET team that is part of this framework set up by the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, the city of Portland. And in that context, there is a certain use of radios, and certain repeaters will be used by the PBEM. So you will need to get those instructions by your NET ham radio coordinators. And there are some within the NET structure here in Portland. And for the purpose of for the specific purpose of PBEM emergency actions. Now, if you want to do it for your own personal family connection, then you need to come up with your own family communication plan and figure out.
I'm sorry, are you able to speak up just a little bit? We're having a really hard time hearing you.
Okay, sorry. I was saying that if Diana wants to have personal communication with her family, then she needs to have her own personal communication plan and figure out with other family members which repeaters they're going to try to use. Diane, did it make sense what I said?
Yes, it did, very much. Thank you. And when we go to do that, I'm concerned about, like, say I want to report to someone that there is an emergency in my area. Like, say I'm walking around my neighborhood after the earthquake, and it's somebody's house is on fire, or someone in my family needs an ambulance or something. Is there a designated place to go, a channel to go to give that information out so that someone can direct me where else to go? Or is that just something I kind of have to randomly scan to see?
No, usually there is a plan. As far as I know, the NET teams use FRS radio, Family Radio Service Radio.
Right.
And those are radios that have a pre-configured channels. And
Mhm.
so generally they say, in case of emergency, get on the radio on channel 11, let's say, and also let's meet physically on this, city park in this neighborhood. And you just grab your backpack with your net stuff, your helmet, your radio, turn it on, go to channel 11 and start walking or bicycle to the city park. That's the way you usually do. So I expect in your neighborhood or your net team that it must be something set up along those lines.
Okay, I'll ask in the net. Thank you very much.
Sure. Just to talk a little more about that, most of your nets have a training program. So you want to try to sign up with your ARO. It's called your ARO, your amateur radio operator, who should be in charge of the training. And so they're the ones that are going to help you figure out exactly which channels are going to be the most useful. And also, to help you drill. That's, for instance, I'm in the Selwood net, and we do a lot of drills like that where we'll, send 2 or 3 man teams out, and the Selwood Bridge is out, and we practice radioing those things in, or, this building is on fire, that type of thing. So that's probably going to be your best use, for your skills. For that kind of emergency preparedness.
Okay, we're just getting started is our thing. We've been a few months, and we're basically just trying to see if we can hear each other is all we're doing.
Sure.
So.
Which net team? Pardon?
South Portland. It used to be down in like Willamette Park, not South Waterfront. It's up above that a little bit. It's South Portland. It's like Lair Hill, John's Landing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're right across the river in Selwood. So,
right.
And as Bill was saying, what you want to try to do is get comfortable with the radio and try to use it as much as you can in a variety of contexts. And the Portland net has a variety of training exercises on a larger scale as well. Every Sunday, they do a special net. It's called the net. It sounds a little confusing, but that's at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock every Sunday evening. So that gives you a perfect chance to check in with your radio. Pardon my voice, that sometimes comes and goes. Anyway, this gives you a good opportunity to get comfortable with your radio, learning how to, the protocol of, how to call in, how to be recognized, how to program the radio in case you need to do any additional programming. So that's one opportunity every Sunday. Also, in fact, I'm going to throw it to Nick before I lose my voice entirely. Can you talk a little bit about the simplex exercise?
Certainly. Actually, I do that mostly with the Multnomah County ARES. So that is where I focus most of my efforts, not so much with the net, although I've done that as well. And I think about once a month we have, every week we have a net that we all get on, but once a month it's a simplex exercise. And so, as I mentioned earlier, that we do not use repeaters to communicate. And
what is a net?
Sorry?
What is a net?
What is a net? A net is a way for a group of people to get together on a particular frequency at a particular time with one net control radio operator, basically orchestrating traffic and asking for people's comments and making sure that everybody is acknowledged and that the traffic that needs to be passed is passed efficiently.
A big conference call with radios.
Yeah,
exactly.
Thank you, Kirk. That's exactly right. And so what we'll do is 1 week per month, will get on and we'll all be using Simplex. And it's an interesting exercise. I recommend that you guys check in, and you wouldn't be able to check in as in call the net control unless you were a member of Multnomah County Aries until the end of the net. And then they ask, hey, is there anybody here who's not a member of Multnomah County Aries? Please come now with your call sign. And the good thing about doing that is that you get a sense of how hard it is for people to communicate without repeaters. They oftentimes, the net control will pass off control to what they call a relay, which then that person presumably has a better signal strength with a individual, a station that's trying to come in who's just too scratchy for the net control to copy. And so then that process of passing the baton of net control around so that all of the individual operators can be acknowledged and their information passed on to net control is a really good one to practice, and it's a good one to check in and listen for.
Nick, can you, Nick, I'm looking at, can you explain the difference between net and Multnomah County Aries real quickly in just a few words?
Sure, as best I can. I'm probably not the best person to do that, but Marino, actually, I think you'd be a better person to, efficiently discuss both.
Very simply, unfortunately, the word net is overloaded. In this case, net means the neighborhood emergency training program of the PBEM, City of Portland, Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. So we're talking about the net program. Right before then, we were talking the word net to describe an ham radio on the air meeting, which is a different thing. But anyway, so generally here in town, we have two emergency management effort, one at the county level. And so the Multnomah County has an emergency management office. And for that, they use amateur radio to provide emergency communication services. The amateur radio group involved at the county level is ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Services, ARES. And so we have a Multnomah County ARES group. And they, in case of emergency, they are committed to support the county. And then there is a separate effort, which is the PBEM net. And it's a group of volunteers that the City of Portland trains on a program of, kind of community help that they train to use radios such as the walkie-talkie, FRS walkie-talkie, but also amateur radio to be in service of the City of Portland. And so Multnomah Aries works for the county. The net team works for the City of Portland.
Just to add a bit of clarification there too, you could also think of it as kind of a hierarchy. Portland nets are generally going to be the boots on the ground in your neighborhood. Like here in Sellwood, we spend a lot of time, walking the streets, getting to know the buildings, getting to know the people, practice checking in because, our primary concern is going to be our neighborhood. I'm also a member of ARES, Multnomah County ARES, but that's at a somewhat higher level. For instance, I'm part of a team on the ARES that if, we had all our nets situated and everybody was, in place and good, then I would default and go to ARES. And I have a station, for instance, at Reed College, where I would go and set up a regional and assist with the regional station, that would interface at a higher level also with the state emergency management and so forth. So there's a little bit of a hierarchy thing there. And if you get really interested in emergency communication and want to take it to the next level, Multnomah County Aries, is kind of the logical next step up, from the NET program, and has a little bit different involvement. That's just sort of a clarification, hopefully. Hopefully I didn't confuse anyone.
I'm sorry, did Nick say
Yep.
that you're not allowed to listen in on the Aries unless you're a member?
No. Actually, I was encouraging you to do that. And I can put a link in the chat here for reference to when the net occurs and on what frequency it is. And then at the end of the net, at the end of the Multnomah County net, the net control will either, if it's on simplex or if it's through a repeater, will ask for any other stations, because actually they are a very welcoming group even for people who are not experienced radio operators, because they will train you and they will get you ready to be on a team, and that you won't join that team until you're ready. So, it's a fun group, but I would say that Dan's assessment is a good one, that they're not really there to try to get you to learn all different aspects of radio. If you wanted to be interested in some, radio is a very broad topic, and it's very deep in any of those of the topic. And so if you were not necessarily interested in emergency communications, you wouldn't go to the Multnomah County Aries and ask them, how do I track satellites and bounce signals off of satellites? Because that's just not something that that's not their bailiwick. And I also wanted to make one other plug for the Beacon. It's also a City of Portland operation. And for those of you who are just starting with ham radio, but are more interested in the emergency radio communications, or actually more interested in the Portland nets, or just being aware of what to do in an emergency, I'll put another link in the chat there for the Beacon network. And what the City of Portland has done is it's figured out where it will set up these beacon stations where you would just walk to that station if there was an incident and there was chaos around and you needed to get some information. Hey, we need an emergency person here now. You would get to that station and you wouldn't have to be a licensed radio operator. They would get that information to the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. So I'll put that in the links.
Great.
We're talking about natural disasters and things. The bombing in Nashville here was that Christmas morning or thereabouts. Took out a large portion of the cell and hardline telephone because it was right outside the AT&T building where all that stuff comes into. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big natural disaster.
Sure. There's a number of scenarios, that you could find yourself doing. Does anybody else have any questions along that line? And then I'm going to kind of expand on a related topic, but I wanted to give anyone else a chance to ask a question.
I'm just going to jump in for a minute
Sure.
because I need to head out. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay if something else has come up and I won't be able to join you, but it's been great to meet you. I'm in an odd position as an electronics technician who's just moved to the area. So I've been using commercial radios for many years, including as a member of the Coast Guard, but I have never used a, what would you call a consumer radio. I've never used an amateur radio.
Sure.
And I've just moved to the area and I thought, well, this would be a good way to get to know people in the neighborhood and get involved. So I do have a call sign that's being traded. I'm in Canada, which they tell me can be, that I can just carry on using.
Sure.
But I don't have any equipment and I don't really know anyone in town. So it's been great to listen in and I'm sure I'll be back next time.
Yeah, please come back and we can, we'd be happy to help you out with, suggestions on equipment.
That's great.
And any of that kind of, you bet. Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right. One of the topics that, has come up here repeatedly is learning to use your radio. And along that line, one of the things, we have all the various emergency training uses, which is excellent. But there's also opportunities for you to use the radio and have some fun, and not necessarily directly, quote unquote, emergency preparedness. But you'll get a lot of familiarity and comfort with using your radio. And a lot of these are, variety of activities that are sponsored by some of the radio organizations to increase activity, awareness, and comfort. And some of it's just fun. There's a lot of contests, and for those who are, for instance, maybe into gaming and that kind of a thing, the contest can really be enjoyable.
Oh, there's a contest.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's see. Is Max still here? I'm gonna Max. Can you hear us? Are you still in touch?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna. Do you have a minute to just?
Say that again.
He muted himself. You cannot see it.
Just maybe talk about the contest and specifically the VHF UHF contest.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that it's a contest, and for those of you who don't know, in ham radio, a contest is kind of a specific time and date, and they can last anywhere from just a few minutes to a week or more. And the goal of most contests is to just get on the air and start making contacts between people. So in January, the 16th and 17th is the ARRL, and that's our national kind of union for amateur radio people, the American Radio Relay League. They host a contest, the VHF contest. And the reason why we're kind of highlighting this contest is because it's one of the easier contests to participate in, even if you only have a simple and inexpensive Baofeng or Yaesu handheld radio. I participated in it last year, and there are a lot of people around the Portland area who are driving in their cars or sitting at home trying to make contacts with other people and successfully making contacts. So this is, I believe it's about a 24-hour contest. And for VHF, you would want to use simplex frequencies, which means that you're not using repeaters. It's just one frequency to transmit, the same frequency to receive. I do have kind of a fact sheet that I will send out to everybody who is on our email list. And if you signed up for tonight's Zoom session, then I already have your email, and I'll add you to our list. And the fact sheet kind of just briefly describes how you might get set up for this contest. For example, like the start time and the end time, common frequencies and modes to use. I am also attaching the official rules to it, several pages long, not a hard read. And if you have any questions, certainly contact any of us by email, or you can ask questions here if you have any. But the fact sheet will have the website, several websites that you can use for learning more about this particular contest. It's pretty informal, very relaxed, and fun to do, and a great way to kind of test out your radio. The only thing you really need to know is the exchange, and we all live in kind of a Maidenhead. Somebody a while ago took the entire Earth and they divided it up into little squares, and the square that's around Portland in general is CN 85, Charlie November 85. Most people will hide in there. If you don't, there's an easy way to look up your address and it'll tell you what your grid square is. So the exchange usually is somebody calls CQ, meaning I'm calling anybody to respond. And then the other person, when they hear that, they would kind of reply with their call sign and their grid square. And the grid square exchange would take place. So the calling person would reply with their grid square. And that is an entire contact, is a grid square and a call sign. So if anybody has any questions, I don't want to take up too much time describing this, but because the email that I send out will have the fact sheet on the first page with a lot of different resources. You can use, like I said, your handheld radio. Other people may use Morse code or single sideband, but the handheld radio is by far the easiest way to get into this contest. So should be something fun.
And Max, so do you, when you go on, are you saying that if you say CQ, that is saying, I want to speak to whoever's on this frequency?
Yeah, exactly. So in ham radio, normally you don't call CQ on repeaters. There's kind of a different protocol for that. But for simplex and contests, VHF and HF, you typically say CQ contest. That will kind of indicate that you're looking to talk to somebody and make an exchange with for the contest. So in this particular case, the exchange is then your call sign and your current grid square. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And how do we find out our grid square again? Is it the one?
Yeah, so in fact, if you just type in, like, just Google ham radio grid square or Maidenhead, MAIDENHEAD, it'll actually pull up like the first 3 or 4 results. Will give you sites that you just type in your zip code or your address and zip code, and it will actually tell you what your grid square is. In this particular contest, even though grid squares are 8 or more characters, this contest is only using the larger grid squares of 4 characters, so 2 letters followed by 2 numbers.
Okay, great.
I'll just toss in here the past couple of years. What I've done, and this has been a lot of fun in case you think you're interested, I would take a group of people, or actually we would just meet up at a location outdoors, assuming the weather isn't too nasty, and kind of help people work through doing some of the contest exchanges. And one of the places that we've gone the past couple of years, it's actually called Mount Sylvania. But what it is, it's a Tualatin City Park. I think, yeah, city of Tualatin, actually. And it's right across from PCC Sylvania, the campus right up off of Capitol Hill. And, you know, it's just a city park and it's got a little bit of elevation to it, which is handy for a contest. And what I've done is I just, 3 or 4 people have met me there. They bring their radios. I just kind of help walk them through the exchange so they get comfortable with it and kind of turn them loose and, kind of help mentor, to do that contest. And that way it just kind of makes it fun, because you'll, especially from a higher elevation, you may get contacts, from up and down the Willamette Valley. You may get Salem, Eugene, Vancouver, Ridgefield, Kelso, a variety of places depending upon, conditions and equipment. And it just makes it kind of fun. And you start to get a sense of being comfortable with your radio and getting on the air. And so if folks are interested in that, just let me know. Marina, maybe you can stick my email in the chat there and just drop me an email and we'll set up a session to do that. I'd be happy to do that.
You think that you're even able to make that number of contacts with a handheld?
Oh yeah, amazingly so. I'll usually have a couple of extra antennas, which may be a little fancier than what you might have on your radio, but will assist you because it's all about the antenna. Your basic radio comes with a pretty simple antenna, and then as you get a little more serious or crazy or interested, you start exploring, antennas that will increase your range, which is also useful for emergency communication.
And where
as
might we
well,
find
because-
that information?
Okay. A couple of different places. You can start looking. A great place to look is what's the store in
HRO
Tiger.
and radio outlet.
Yeah, ham radio outlet, and that's kind of what we call the candy store, for ham radio. And if you're a builder or a maker, a lot of these antennas are pretty easy to make. In fact, Nick, I don't know, do you happen to have yours there that you can show it off?
An antenna that I made? I don't.
Yeah.
I'm upstairs. I'm not in my shack.
Okay.
Yeah. Dan's right. Yeah, you can actually make antennas. Bill and Dan, and there's several people here who are quite conversant in this. It's a lot of fun actually, because it's really easy to do. And you feel like, hey, I made something electronic and I'm going to use it. And it actually is better than that little stub of an antenna on top of your HT. And I would recommend leaving your credit card at home when you go to HRO, because like Dan said, it's a candy store.
And where is that?
I'm about to post the location. Just keep an eye. Can you see the chat room here in Zoom? Where I'm posting the links?
It comes in and then it leaves. Okay, now I can see it. Yes, it just comes in and then it leaves, but I see it. Maidenhead, right. Okay, I see it, yes.
If you Google HRO, you'll get the main corporate site, and on there you can see what they have and stuff, and go to the particular, tell you where the stores are. It's out King City, just past Tigard on
Yeah.
where the physical store is.
I'm sharing my screen now, and you can see the page.
Thank you so much, guys. You're answering all my questions.
Uh-oh.
That's great. That's what this is for.
Thank you, Kirk, for the assist.
Yeah. And I'll just reiterate that a lot of this, these activities will help you get comfortable with the radio, and it can be fun, if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. That may not be the thing that floats your boat, but if it is, that's an option for an activity. Some of us also engage in even some more serious activities, including one that's called SOTA, which is called Summits on the Air. And basically what that involves is hiking to some higher elevations and taking our radios and, trying to contact people even over longer distances. And another excellent one is called Parks on the Air, POTA. So a lot of the city, I don't know so much the city, but the state and national parks are a place where a lot of people will take their radios and try to contact a lot of other folks. And there's a real interested and exciting group of people that are involved in these activities. And in fact, when we go out to do these activities, we're contacting folks all over the United States, and in fact, all around the world. In fact, from this one place, Mount Sylvania, using a different type of radio and using Morse code, I've been in regular contact with folks in Australia and New Zealand and Japan. And, it's not as big a deal these days when you can pick up a cell phone and, connect with somebody around the world. But hey, if that infrastructure goes down, you could, you might enjoy that. And it's just a fun aspect of the hobby. As we say, this, ham radio is many hobbies within the hobby. And there's so many different areas of interest. There's a whole group of people that do nothing but try to bounce their signals off the moon and enjoy that. almost all the astronauts in the space program at the space station, they all have their ham licenses, and that's a backup means of communication. And they can regularly communicate directly to hams on Earth. And, a lot of folks will do that, which, so there's so many aspects of this hobby that, aside from the emergency communication, it can also just be something that's really fun and enjoyable. Can, get you out and get you physically active if that's of an interest to you, or, whatever. Yeah, here's some pictures of the summits on the air, and you can see some of these places where people go, and it's a lot of fun.
Are you going to send us a copy of the chat room references in our email later, or should we copy them down?
You can actually say, oh, go ahead, Marina.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that you can actually just save those to your desktop if you want, or Marino or one of us can make those available. But right now you can, there's a little button that to the right of where you type in, and it says file. And if you click on that, it'll give you an opportunity to save.
Okay, I'm on my phone. I'm on my phone. So
okay.
let me
Yeah, that makes it harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can.
I can go on my, I'll go on my, would my iPad be a help if I was on that?
Diana, do we have your email address?
Yes, I signed up. I registered for this.
Okay.
It's PDX Hills.
Okay.
Do you see it? At Gmail?
Okay. Well, I'm just taking note of that. We'll figure out a way to get you the links.
And yeah, while you're doing that, so Dan and I tried to start a new on the air group called Brew Pubs on the Air, or Broda, but unfortunately that just hasn't taken off yet. So if any of you guys are interested in that, we'd be glad to erect a 20-foot antenna at our favorite brew pub when they open up after the vaccinations are all administered.
I'm sure they're going to be very busy after the pandemic is over. The pubs are going to be very busy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the fun part of all this is you can do many different kinds of things. There's a great deal of work, interfacing, modern computer technology with the radios. And in fact, this kind of cycles back to the emergency preparedness. The group we were talking about earlier, which is Multnomah County Amateur Radio Emergency Services, one of the things that they do is that they have developed basically a radio email system. So it's independent of any internet structure. So in case they had to send, email messages describing a situation, or for instance, talking about, a medical situation, like we have 200 beds and 100 nurses or doctors or supplies, that could be communicated through a radio email system, but that requires interfacing with a computer and a radio, and they drill on that regularly. In fact, Nick, you might even expand on that just a little if you want, because you're much more familiar with it than I am.
That is something that they are trying to get us to use more. You can imagine that when you go digital, you can transmit a lot more information than by voice or even, by CW. Although I've heard people argue that they can match email, but I did have a PBEM exercise where I was at their emergency control command center. And I was just staffing the WinLink is what the email over radio is called. I was just individually staffing that, and there were 2 other people that were on their stations doing voice, and I got 10 times the messages that they got out in less. I was twiddling my thumbs most of the time. So it is. There are issues with it that, us purists, Bill would have something to say about this, have issues with, but it is a good system to learn if you want to get into emergency communications. And one of the things that I thought about, I talked to our neighbors, up and down the block. We've formed a little unit. We used to meet regularly, once every 2 or 3 months, and just to check in with each other. Does anybody need any help, etc. And let's talk about the latest, greatest topic. And one thought that I had was, I wanted to get those folks to realize that I could communicate out and receive information using this WinLink email application, and that what they would do is give me individuals who are outside of our immediate area, presumably who were not impacted by any of the communication breakdown. And then I would just put all those all those addresses on a general message saying, these people are in good shape. We will get in touch with you as soon as we can, and send that out. So that we have that system. I've practiced it. I need to practice it again. It's been a while. Like Bill says, you do really need to work on this stuff, because when you're really anxious about something, is not the time to try to troubleshoot it. But it's a good system.
Just to take it even to another level, the national organization, which is called the Amateur Radio Relay League, which I highly recommend you join, because it's a fantastic organization. It provides a lot of support, a lot of training, and a lot of excellent materials. For instance, they help orchestrate international networks that will aid communication through various countries. Perfect example of that was, for me, I think it was about 2 years ago, when one of the major hurricanes came through the Caribbean. And my neighbor knew that I was a ham radio operator, and her parents were on a tiny island called St. Bartholomew, St. Bart's, and they were French speaking. But she had no way to communicate with them. And St. Bart's was directly in the path of one of these things. So she said, "Can you help me, somehow get a message?" And she said, "I think that there's a ham radio operator on the island who speaks French, who is a French national, because it's a French possession." I said, "I'll do what I can." So I started a message through the national networks, which is actually something you can learn to do fairly easily yourself once you get comfortable with the radio. Started the message, and within 48 hours, she was able to get a direct reply that her parents, were safe and sound, that, there'd been a lot of damage, there'd been power outages, but they were safe and sound. A lot of this is called health and welfare traffic, but that's just kind of one other example of what we can do through these networks, because there was no other means of communication with this island. That was it. Every other bit of infrastructure was completely destroyed, and the one radio ham on the island was able to communicate. So
I want to send a link about the NTS, the National Traffic System, which is this network of communication through amateur radio, where you can send messages and get messages. It's old, but still good. Also, I want to call out some comments that Melody made. Melody, do you want to get on the speaker here? And you said that you really like the ham radio for dummies. Do you want to tell us how it helped you?
Yes, I actually said that at the behest of my family members. I haven't personally picked up that book very much myself. Jenny, would you be so kind as to take it away?
It's a lot more accessible than the ARRL book, at least to me, who's not a techie person. And so it's laid out differently, but has all the same information. It's just
Good.
a lot more accessible.
Fantastic. Good.
Yeah, I think that is something that we need to reiterate. This is a very broad and it goes deep in many different areas. And we already have covered quite a lot tonight. And some of you may be like, yeah, all right, good. Some of you guys may be a little overwhelmed. And I was definitely when I started this. I thought, oh, you know, I had a little bit of experience in electronics and it's no problem. I knew people who had gotten their licenses before. And then it was just like, oh my goodness, this is too much information. It's like drinking water from a fire hose. So don't get overwhelmed by this stuff. Just find something that you want to do and stay focused on that. And if we start talking about, you know, Earth to Moon communications, just roll your eyes. That's fine. But
and this book is really helpful for that kind of thing because you can skip through it and it has some high level information, but then if you want to get more, it gives you links, but it doesn't, you know, it gives you that high level. So.
Absolutely perfect. That's great. Yeah, you know, and for instance, my personal thing that I like to do, I will take a lot of the radios, the ham radios from like the 1930s, the 1940s, the 50s, and put them back into use. You know, I'll restore them. You know, they're they're practically antiques, but I get a great deal of joy out of working on those, restoring them and putting them into use. So, you know, there's so many aspects of this hobby that that you can enjoy and find camaraderie with, you know.
So before we wrap up for the night, do we have anybody else with different questions on topics we haven't touched upon tonight?
Yeah, and get ready to say that. And I just did also, have we mentioned the Portland Amateur Radio Club? Because
no, we haven't.
Yeah,
but let's be sure to do that.
Stuff, and that's one that you might just look up and consider attending one of our Zoom meetings. They're all Zoom meetings now, because that is something that would, you know, you'll find people like us there. Sorry to interrupt on that, Marina. It's
okay. I'm just posting the link.
And just one other thing I wanted to mention was I appreciate you guys letting us know what the acronyms mean, because I think that's one of the most intimidating things. You can listen to a meeting like this and the men are, mostly men, are talking away in like a foreign language because they're using words that they are very familiar with. But, generally, if you're new, you're not really following it. So it's very, very helpful to have you take a moment and just, you know, let us know what you're talking about, spell it out, you know, for us. Thank you.
Sure.
It's a prank. Whenever Nick talks, I challenge him and I force him to explain all the acronyms. And then when it's my turn, he does it to me. So
yeah. Let's open it up. Anybody else have any other questions on anything? You know, I've no guarantees we'll have the answer, but we'll at least try to talk about it, even if we don't know what we're talking about. Okay.
Hello?
Hey.
Yes.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Actually, I do have a silly question, a fast one, which is, I live on the west side, and in 55 minutes I can hike up to Council Crest. Is that a resource that I should consider when I get my license for an emergency?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a great spot to be able to effectively communicate from.
Yeah, William or Bill. One thing to keep in mind, though, there is that a lot of communications infrastructure up there. And so, you know, there's issues with transmitting right next to those that you might, you'll learn about as you learn more about this hobby. But yeah, it's a good elevation to be projecting. A lot of times when I was talking about those relays that occur in our simplex exercises, there's an operator that's up on that Council Crest, and she is rock solid. You can always count on Luis to come through and help out people. So yeah, it's a good spot, but don't get too close to those transmission towers.
Thank
All
you.
right. I think John has something for us, right, John? It's your turn.
Hey, am I able to be heard?
Yes.
Hey, sorry, I was testing out this setup here. Yeah, my name is John. I'm new here. It's my first meeting of anything like this. I purchased a pretty nice Yaesu off Craig Walker, with call sign Kilo Delta 7 Juliet Sierra. Yeah, now I'm studying up and just kind of getting involved in the community. So I feel like I maybe feel like a kid who just got his driver's license and somehow got his hands on a really nice car. It's a pretty nice radio, and I don't want to blow it up as soon as I attempt to plug it in. So I need to prepare and learn as much as I can with that. So
which radio did you get?
I purchased a Yaesu FT847. So sort of an oldie but a goodie. But it's
Definitely goodie.
yeah. And it's I feel like you guys said Earth. I'm not in this so much maybe for the emergency preparedness capacity, although that's sort of a side byproduct of it. But when you said Earth, Moon, Earth communications, I really pinged up because I want to contact people in every state, on every continent. I want to have an antenna so high in my backyard that my neighbors complain. So.
And it's totally fine. It's totally fine. Some people, I actually witnessed a conversation from somebody here in the metropolitan area that was turned off because somebody else was too aggressive in pushing emergency communication. So this fellow basically said, hey, I'm here to enjoy radio. I don't care about emergency communication. And it's fine. There are many ways to experience this hobby and many reasons for. So the more the merrier.
Yeah.
We're all here to play, and each one can have fun in their own way.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage you, John, to take a look at some of the stuff from the ARRL and also the SOTA, and that will help kind of lead you a little more on that path. Particularly with the 847. Is the 847 is kind of a big brother to the 817, isn't it? Isn't that right, Nick? Nick, do you have an 847?
No, I have an 817.
Which is almost the same, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually one thing that just made me realize with the SOTA activity, Dan was talking about people going on to mountains, but those are the people that are the activators, but there are also people who are in their shack. They're called sloths, and they're chasing the activators. So, John, you don't necessarily need to do SOTA to put that rig to use, for sure.
Yeah.
I kind of hope and plan on becoming sort of a listening post. My first ignorant question to Craig, the man who again sold me the radio from Craigslist, was, well, can I tune into like AM radio? Can I get 105.9 on this big expensive piece of equipment? He kind of looked at me like, well, I suppose you could use it for that, but I don't really see why you'd want to. And I don't know. I would be jazzed to really hear radio stations from far away, maybe from down the gorge or anything like that. Just for kids.
Yeah. In fact, kind of a nice spin-off. It's starting to come back a lot in popular. It was very popular in the 60s and 70s. Was called shortwave listening, and many of the broadcasters throughout the world would have very powerful shortwave stations. For instance, and I did that a lot in younger, when I was a kid in the 50s and 60s. And in fact, I'm sure I have an FBI file because I used to listen to Radio Moscow and Radio Havana, and they used to send me all kinds of stuff, and I was always amazed when I get this package, that said from, Moscow, and the neighbors or the postman would go, what is this? And this was, of course, at the height of the Cold War. So, it was, I was
who is Comrade Presley, and what's coming from Russia with love to him?
Exactly. But I would also listen to the British Broadcasting Corporation, Radio Netherlands. I listened to stations in Africa. South America, the Far East. And a lot of those are now gradually starting to come back. And that's also a very kind of a fun offshoot of the hobby. I still listen to Radio Havana. I mean, they got some of the best music. You tune in at salsa stuff, and man, it's pretty good. Even if I don't agree with all the commentary, but you do get some interesting, slants on, the world events. So that can be kind of a fun part of it, the radio hobby.
I'm big into radio astronomy and SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. I grew up listening to Art Bell on Coast to Coast AM and so forth. And with the recent destruction of the big radar observatory in Arecibo, I figured maybe I could do some of that of my own in my backyard.
I can put you in touch, John. I know that there are some people here local in Oregon or Vancouver. They're really, really into this, and I can dig out the contact information for them if you don't already have them.
No, please do. I'm totally new to this. This was my Impulse 2021. Might as well go for it. Kind of new hobby I picked. So
cool.
Yeah,
so
if you have that info, I'd love it.
Yeah. Check the chat room link. I put Dan's email and my email. And so if you follow up with me, I'll dig out the name of this person, and you will find a lot of, people with the same interests.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know what the exact count is, but there's a lot of amateur ham satellites in orbit that people use, to contact folks around the world. So they'll transmit up to the satellite, and the satellite will then, repeat it down to another location. And so there's a variety of those that are in orbit, and, people get into tracking the satellites. Yes, sir. Yeah. Kirk.
There's a nice phone app called, and actually there's a Windows version of it called Heavens Above. And
Got it. Love it. Shows radio satellites in orbit, and also tells you what on earth is that? Oh, it's just the space station.
Whether it's a space station, it shows you the up and down link. So if it will let you bounce signals off of it, there's a lot of them have little repeaters on them and stuff. If you're going to do that, my experience so far, I've got a vertical antenna on the house here. I can pick up the NOAA weather satellites, but your best thing to do is go out and either build yourself an inexpensive dual band Yagi that you can hold in your hand and point anywhere you want. And you can get some really nice signals. So
thank you for that. A dual band Yagi. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yagi is just kind of a slang for a directional antenna. What it is, your basic antenna is usually one element, even if it's the kind that's a collapsible, on a handheld. And a Yagi is, what it does is it stacks up 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever, and that increases, the efficiency, or what we call the gain of the antenna, both for reception and transmission. And it's sort of focusing it, so it's sort of like a spotlight. So it has it concentrates the energy primarily in one direction, as opposed to a simple antenna, which kind of sends the energy in, maybe even a 360 direction. This will have a much narrower, beam width, so that you could target, a particular station or location. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, folks. Thank you I've just gotten a whole slew of things to learn, and this is why I'm here. I'm learning. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Great. Excellent. That's what it's all about. Any other questions on anything that we can answer? I think otherwise we'll probably wrap it up here, and we'll do this again next week. So feel free to drop in and spread the word if you know anybody. We're more than happy to answer questions and help. And our next, our Portland Amateur Radio Club meeting is next Monday. And we start at 7:00. So what we can do is we'll send you email information on that. You're more than welcome to drop in. Some of the shows that we've had in the past for the Portland Amateur Radio Club have been rather interesting. In fact, one of them was a fellow that specializes in skydiving and using his radio while he's skydiving, Parachute Mobile. And, so yeah, not exactly something I would find myself doing, but it was really fun to listen to. And they have a whole team and a whole group of people, and he tried to make as many contacts as they can while they're, skydiving until they get down to the ground. So, anyway, feel free to stop in and join into the park.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Has the FCC's announced the new licensing fees? Have they set a date for them to go act that they will take effect yet?
That I don't know for sure. Typically, let's see, I'm trying to remember what the information.
I've heard that they'll give us 30 days, but they need to figure out how to implement all this stuff before that 30 days starts.
Right. And in the middle of this government transition, things could be a little interesting. And as I recall, it has to be, they have to publish it in, the appropriate federal documents. It has to be published. And then after, maybe it's 30 days after it's published, but, I'm not entirely clear.
Published, but I didn't know if they'd actually published it yet. I don't think they have, so.
That I don't know, but.
Anybody who's out there is thinking about getting their license and wants to save $35, think about getting it probably in the next 30 to 60 days.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just wanted to say something about the Portland Amateur Radio Club meeting. It can get technical as well. Dan was talking about a particular presentation that was, rather off the wall, but some of it can get real technical, and but we always have a sort of round robin at the beginning, and you guys can check out if you find that this is like not of interest to you. But it would be great to see you there for sure.
Yeah, and this is the site, this meeting here, it's the beginners meeting. So, just come here.
Let's see here. Is Max still with us?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, thank you guys, Nick, Marino, Bill, Kirk, Dan, for kind of filling in for me tonight. We're in Red Bluff, California, so we do have cell service, but not enough light for video. So we'll have these meetings every Thursday at 6 o'clock, and I will send out an email kind of reminder. You will need to register every time for every meeting that you attend, but it's fairly quick. Just click the link, first name, last name, call sign. I do put in a question, kind of what are your interests? What questions do you have? And that'll help us kind of guide the meeting and make sure that we cover everybody's questions. So if you're too shy to ask a question during the meeting, feel free to send me or anybody else an email, and we'll make sure that it gets covered during this meeting. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining this meeting, and I hope to see you at our future weekly meetings.
Yeah, Max is usually the host for us and does an excellent job. So the rest of us are just kind of filling in. But anytime, we're all here to help.
Thank you. So great information.
Yeah, thanks,
you
guys.
bet.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you very
You bet.
much.
Bye.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Hasta, bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.